Okay, and you are live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. This is the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, January 21st, 2021. We'll do a quick roll call to make sure everyone's audio is all set. Hi, Anne. Tracy Murphy. So I'll go Joan.
Here.
Sharon. Anne.
Here.
Kyle.
Here.
Brandon.
And in here.
Evan.
Here.
Morgan.
Here.
Meth Runyon joining from the Select Board.
Here.
And Alan Harrison from the Rec Department.
Here.
And Carol is here now. Yes. Carol?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now I hear you. Thank you. And then we're joined tonight by Scott McDonald and Riley McDonough from Orleans Police Department. So thanks for joining us.
Hi, nice to meet you guys.
Okay, so first thing, we'll approve minutes from December 17th, 2020. I know there was one change that Carol brought up that Anne had already noted. Are there any additional changes? Okay, then we'll look for a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, any seconds?
Second.
Great, and all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Kyle,
Abstain.
okay, and Brandon.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And then the next item is our meeting with Orleans Police Department. So thanks so much for joining us. Just, you know, I think you've talked with Joan a little bit, but we're almost 2 years old. That'll be this spring. And so, you know, as we start to look at projects around the town and areas that could use improvement or places that we haven't thought of, I think this has been a big learning experience for the past 2 years for all of us. And we're really interested in your perspective on what's happening in the town and how recreation and the recreation department could play a role in improving that for people. So I'll give you the floor.
Well, thank you. And we really appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening. As you may know, our policing philosophy really has a strong emphasis on community engagement. And we strategize, we plan on how can we do that? How can we do it better? We were very fortunate a few years ago to win the Community Policing Award for all of New England. It's something that we strive for. But we also realize that's something, it's a foundation that we can build upon. One of the most significant challenges that we have in the community is making those connections with youth. It's very difficult for us. I can say that our school resource officer program has been very successful. But there's so much going on right now with that program, statutory limitations that we're dealing with, that we're looking for another conduit to really make that connection. Riley McDonough has joined us this evening. When we first hired Riley, what, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Riley?
Yeah, about 10, yeah.
Riley, one of the things that attracted me to Riley is that she was very interested in youth and making connections with youth in the community. And I think that she's at the age or at the level in her career now that she's ready. She's ready to take on that challenge. So we are truly open. And again, we appreciate the opportunity to hopefully make some connections with this group and see how we can expand upon that. We have a lot of ideas. We talk about these ideas, but we don't really have that conduit to channel that connection. How do we make the connection to the folks that we're trying to serve, in this particular case, the youth? How do we do that? So we're hoping we can form a relationship with you and we can make that happen. We're 100% in, we're all in, and how can we help?
So
And I wanted to be, if you guys have any questions or wanted to get in contact with me, any ideas that you guys have, I wanted you guys to be able to reach out to me and have my phone number and my email. And I'd love to get involved. Like Chief said, I grew up working at the Boys and Girls Club, and I love all the events that we put on for the kids. And I would just like to get involved in that aspect. And any of the events that you guys have, I looked, and it looks like you have summer events, spring events. I would love to help out and volunteer time in anything that you guys might need, and also come up with ideas that the police officers can get involved and work with the children.
And just to build on that real quick, Riley and I were just talking earlier. We want you guys to have a direct connect to Riley and to the police department. And you don't have to go through me. Sometimes that takes time. We want you to be able to pick up that phone, ask Riley a question, get us involved right away. And I think that's going to really streamline this process. And I'm sure we'll establish that comfort level where you can certainly do that.
I'll open it to the committee for questions. I think in my experience with OPD being involved in things that my kids are doing, I know there's been a lot at the elementary school, Slices with the Sarge, and Orleans Police were also ran an enrichment after school class for, I think, 4th and 5th graders that my husband helped out with. So I think every time there's been a collaboration, it's been such a success. So it's exciting to think about doing more of that. Good. So anyone else with a question or a thought or idea? Morgan?
I just think of that great room you have now, that meeting space, and what potential there is for that. I know my son, when he was doing mock trial, you hosted his group there, I think it was once a month. And I think that's a real opportunity for us to create some sort of programming, maybe in connection with the police department. And it's just really exciting. And we're really excited to have a connection with Riley. So thank you guys so much. I think there's a lot we could do here, which is exciting.
I just got off another Zoom meeting with the Wareham Building Committee, and they're looking at a new police facility. And I really wanted to highlight the multi-purpose room that we have, the community room. It's an EOC, it's a training room for us. Probably one of the things I'm most proud of with our new facility. And the idea behind that was to bring the community to us with the ultimate goal of getting to know each other. We want to know who you are, and you certainly should know who we are. So we will seize any opportunity to bring in folks to come in and utilize that space. Right now, the community room use, we allow local nonprofits to come in and hold meetings. It has been very successful. And the demand was increasing quite a bit prior to COVID, and we expect post-COVID, it's going to continue. But we're all in. Whenever if we could get the kids in for a function or training, it's a great space to utilize.
Other thoughts? Joan?
So I think there's a lot going on. We have applied for a bunch of CPC funds to build things. And I think, Scott, we were talking about, Tracy's leading this one, but a lighted basketball court is coming. That's an engineering study. Morgan's working on this storybook trail. And I think it'd be cool once that starts to get built, and the police, Riley maybe could be part of that, because local people, I think Oregon ends up putting it together, and it's with young families. The OCT is part of it, and I could send you, or Tracy could send you, all these proposals that we're putting through. Anne's working on kayak racks, so there's going to be a kayak rack program, and Carol's working on a trail program. So we're really at the beginning of a lot of programs where I see, Riley, that you could play a big part in helping to make these things come to fruition. And whether there's lessons or training or life-saving skills, like you can have a class over at the police department on some of that. It really is a great opportunity. And then maybe Alan has a newsletter that goes out to 350 people that talks about what's going on in rec. And Alan and I were talking about some opportunities about safety, fitness regimes, and we could focus on some of the police officers that talk about, what you do to stay fit. What's your favorite sport? And highlight a couple of the police officers that are young and not young, sorry, in shape, I should say, and vibrant, but the ones that you want to start interacting with the youth with. So I think there's a lot there also.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of great ideas out there, and I know Riley has a lot of fantastic ideas that we were just talking about. But I think another benefit to this, Joan, is we have some real talent here with our employees and officers, and I really want you to get to know them. I want you to see faces other than mine, and that's one of the things we're really trying to do. And having the opportunity to bring in these new faces. I think you're going to really be impressed with the officers that we have in this community.
Carol?
I agree with Joan. I think as background for Scott and Riley, Alan is really the program guy currently. He's the town employee, and the rest of us are in an advisory position currently. And so we have sort of immediate goals to get Community Preservation Act money to launch some of the things Joan just discussed. And then the next step we'll be taking is sort of building a long range plan. And that might include things, there's a lot of excitement about the community center on this committee, whatever that means and looks like. And partnering with other groups, like bike paths and on the water, kayak and other paddle sports and sharing the road on the water sort of thing. So just I think either side's ideas, I think we pick anything and try it and it'll go well. And then we pick another one. I think we're just sort of.
You put yourself on mute, Carol.
We're between having applied for a lot of money for specific things and looking at the longer term. But Alan may have some really immediate ideas too, because he's absolutely up to speed on the winter spring programming.
Yeah, I think we're taking a role here where we're here to help. What do you need from us? But we are getting something out of this, folks. Let's be honest. Law enforcement in general has some significant problems right now, building relationships with the community. And I do look at this, as an opportunity to continue to build relationships with the community, to continue to build public trust in policing, and using this as a platform to do so. The ultimate goal is to be there to serve the children. That's what we're trying to do here. But in addition to that, again, from our perspective, having the opportunity to cultivate those relationships is just so important.
Alan, I know I would love you to talk about, but I could see Riley maybe going to the skating event. Alan has a couple of things coming on, the road race. And, if you can get Alan's newsletter, you'll know what's going on and he might be able to reserve some spots for you. But those are perfect opportunities. And Alan's doing a really nice job during COVID for whatever he can get done with the limited opportunities there are, but he's got some programs going that might be great places to jump in.
Yeah, that's kind of some of the things I was thinking of too. I mean, I'm not a good skater, but I can try. But yeah, I would love to do that with the kids. That sounds awesome.
I don't know if I want Riley on the skateboard. I can't have her injured. We're down too many officers.
Sadly, I used to play girls hockey in high school too, but I'm not very good.
But
Scott, one of the things I would really like to add on to what you have an officer that I'm drawing a major blank on his first name, but I think his last name is McLaughlin.
Yes, Andy McLaughlin.
Andy, okay. I had a conversation with him a little while back about sort of in the summertime. I mean, we basically take over the schools with our summer rec programs, and just connecting with the police department on the things that would happen in a school situation if we had a lockdown, if we needed to close, if there was an emergency in the town, if there was a need to lock down, to have a good working, and we do have a great relationship. And I've had some good conversations with Andy about maybe towards the beginning of the summer is restarting some of those so that the police department knows exactly, in essence, who I am, if I need to call and use a cell phone and things like that, to just go over some steps that would be taken. Because
Yeah.
you know, 100 kids in the elementary school and 40 in the middle school and staff, and then maybe even come down and have a little quick training with my summer staff on some procedures on evacuating the building or bringing them into a secure location.
We, first of all, yes, done. Consider it done. We have a couple instructors on staff. It's referred to as the ALICE program. It's something that we teach and we have been teaching in schools. It's a wonderful program. Again, Andy happens to be one of those instructors, and you know, we addressed this early on, and would be happy to do so. I think that you'll get a lot out of it. And again, just an introduction from our offices that we know you're there, you know we're here, and I think that will go a long way.
Okay, are there other questions or comments? Okay, I think, again, thank you for coming, and, you know, I think we should continue this, you know, continue the communication, and I can send around Riley's email address to everyone, or Riley, maybe I'll email you and get your phone number too, and then send that out.
Yep.
But, you know, I would encourage committee members, as projects and ideas continue to come up, to look to the Orleans Police Department as a great resource, both for, you know, I had checked in with Scott a few times about the basketball court when we were trying to find a good location, that that perspective can be really helpful, and then the benefits to the community and to kids in the community are, you know, really wonderful. And I think that's an untapped resource. So this is exciting. I really look forward to seeing more of you, and to moving forward from this.
Great. Thank
Riley, if we only meet once a month at this time, you can always join. And not every topic is going to be of interest, but there's maybe something that sparks interest of, hey, here's an idea. And then Alan could put you on the email list so you could see what activities you might want to take place in. Because what Alan runs is really from the schools and the community.
Okay, yeah, that would be perfect.
And there are some adult classes also that Alan runs that, not just youth, but you might want to also meet, you know, some of us on the other end of the spectrum.
All right, folks, thank you so much for thinking of us, and we look forward to continuing the relationship. Thanks again.
Great. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
have a great
Bye.
evening.
Thank you, guys.
All right, bye. Okay, I'm going to, we'll do the recreation director's report next. So Alan, oh, my squares moved, so I've got to find Alan again. I got you now.
Okay, so officially basketball, I don't remember when that was official, but basketball is not happening for this winter. So we'll pick up hopefully spring sports with some baseball, some softball, some tennis instruction. When the weather gets a little bit better, we hopefully can do a little bit more outside with adult activities, classes, fitness programming, unless we are back in buildings. But we are not at the moment, so we have no access to public buildings. We ran ice skating 2 Saturdays ago. We maxed out. We were allowed 25 skaters. We had 25 skaters at the rink. It was a great Saturday night. We've got another one coming up in 2 weeks. We had a road race, cross-country race scheduled for last Saturday, which was postponed due to the inclement weather. We have a soccer 2-weekend tournament starting Saturday. We're going to play Saturday the 23rd and Saturday the 30th, giving the kids just 2 weekends of some fun soccer games out at OES. So that's scheduled. We are continuing our outdoor adult fitness programming, which is running at Eldridge Park 3 mornings a week, which is pretty popular, even though we've lost some members due to them going south, but the program is still running. Definitely want to thank Joan for meeting with me a little while ago, a week and a half ago, on helping to give me some ideas to recreate our recreation newsletter. Met with Sarah Eaton yesterday to get some ideas from her and some help from her, which she's more than happy to do. Joan has, and others, I know Tracy had offered to help, to just make our newsletter bigger and better, have more information in it, have more graphics, have more pictures, have like consistent coaches corner, have news stories about staff or volunteer coaches, and to have links right to sign up. So that's being worked upon now, which is really, I really have been enthused by that. So I think that'll improve the newsletters that get out. We have some fitness videos that are coming out any day now that will be on YouTube. We're trying to latch that into the website, but we're working on that. So that's going to be out basically in a couple of days, I hope. And basically the purpose of all that, because we can't run too many classes, is just to give people an opportunity, like the Council on Aging, the group that I had prior to the COVID problems here, had a group of following of fitness people, is to just offer them some YouTubes. If they want to tune in, they can work through and exercise with us via YouTube. So that's what's going on.
Thank you, Alan.
Mhm.
Any questions for Alan? Alan, I did have a request at my house to ask about the possibility of spring basketball. So I know we have limited courts and you don't have to answer right now, but I'm getting a lot of pressure. What's the point of having a mother on the advisory committee if she can't?
But I met with
Can't
Alan.
ask about spring basketball. Joan?
I met with Alan last week. What I didn't understand was that we can't have basketball because we don't own the facility. If we had a community center, we could be having basketball.
Well, basketball.
I would be thinking outside.
No, right, but I didn't understand that whole relationship between the
yes,
school and what Alan does. I didn't understand. It was so confusing until I talked to him last week.
It is another great reason to keep pursuing the community center, so that rec has dedicated courts and gym space to run programs without having to, ask permission or even just work around the school schedule. It definitely underlines that point. Yeah. Anyone else have kids pestering you with ideas or other questions for Alan? Okay. All right, Alan, I think the newsletter, each month it has another element and it's fun to read, and I'm excited to see what you do with it. It's been nice to get that and check out the offerings. And I can't imagine, what you're able, how much there is that you've been able to put into it now with really limited programming. I think once you've got people back in programming can take pictures and more things going on, it'll be even better. So that's great.
Yeah.
Carol?
Yeah, just a quick question, Alan. If we were allowed to via COVID protocols, would pickleball lessons be one of your spring or summer programs for adults?
Oh, that's been it in the past. Yes, that's yes, that's happened in the past prior to obviously COVID. I have an instructor who's dynamite, who loves to teach, and he's had a pretty good following. We've had classes obviously prior to this of 12 to 14 people at a session and different skill levels. So yeah, definitely, absolutely. That would be on the spring list along with tennis again, because those are certainly outdoor, that the COVID restrictions aren't bad at all. So yeah, absolutely.
Anne?
Speaking of pestering, it's not kids, but seniors who are busy playing pickleball outdoors because we're all very desperate. And a few have asked me if the rec department could put the nets back up down below where they had been, so that people could go play pickleball outdoors. Now, I understand that the nets may not be made for winter weather, and private courts have decided to leave the nets up and raise money to pay for new nets if they get worn out. But those private courts are very active with all these desperate seniors.
I'll give that. I mean, I'll think about it. I know the nets are not permanent. They're just temporary nets that are affected by wind and rain, and they're not sturdy nets. And I don't know. I'll think about that. I mean, it is a. I know when and if pickleball courts, permanent courts, are built here, there's going to be pickleball on those courts from 7 in the morning until dark. There's so many people who are interested in pickleball. In fact, they want to know if we can make more. And it's like, can we eliminate another tennis court? And I was like, well, let's just get 4 pickleball courts going. But there's definitely, the pickleball thing is crazy. It's well, I guess it's going to be I'm lost for words here. You caught me with my tongue tied. It's just going to be popular. It's going to be a great thing for the town when we can say we have pickleball courts.
Beth?
Alan, just a question. How much do those nets cost?
Are you talking about the nets themselves or the building of the new court? Which one?
Well, I think just to Ann's request.
They're probably about $200 a net,
Right.
like a net.
I think given what's going on, we ought to be able to find a way to do that. And I say it's easy for me to say, but I don't have a specific solution. But that just seems reasonable. And we don't meet again for a couple of weeks. But let me see if I can ask that question. And how many nets would be at risk?
4.
So you'd be talking about $800.
Well, we don't need to buy them. We have some.
But you need to replace them if they got wrecked.
Yeah, what we're looking for is just to put 2 up.
Yeah.
So, and I'm thinking that
Just leave it and let people come.
Yeah, and
Okay.
play. Yeah. And wouldn't the department have income that hasn't been used?
Oh, yeah, they wouldn't, if we're gonna put 2 up, we don't need to buy them. We have them.
No, but we're talking about the weather, wearing them out, so you'd have to replace them come spring.
It's
potentially.
possible. Yeah, it's possible.
But I'm thinking that the department might well have some revenue that could be cover them because it's not being spent.
Yeah,
for
that
other-
is. Yep, we can do it.
Okay, great. Other questions for Alan? Okay. I would, and someone stop me if I'm doing something I can't do with Robert's rules. I'd like to move an agenda item out of order. I'd like to move up the discussion of the Charter Review Committee and the Recreation Advisory Charge, just so we can hear from Meth, because he's leaving at 7. So I don't think, I know we've still got half an hour, but one part of my brain will be thinking about what time it is, and I'd rather just be able to focus on what we're talking about. So I'd like to make a motion to move the Charter Review Committee and charge discussion up to the next item on the agenda. Anne? Are you second? Okay.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Okay, terrific. So at the last meeting, we talked about the 5-year plan, the charter review, our charge, and this has been a discussion that we keep coming back to, and I think what we're still trying to land on is what our next step is. So after the last meeting, we also talked about doing an analysis with the SWOT report, but sort of the next steps for the committee. I did reach out to Alan about putting together some data on enrollment in different programs so that we can start to gather that information and look at it. So he's going to do that for the next meeting. I also reached out to the charter committee and they asked me to submit something in writing explaining our interest. So I did that and just talked about, wanting to broaden the scope of what this committee does. The charter committee deals with multi-member committees under Chapter 6 of the charter, and they're not there yet. So my understanding is that I'll hear from them as they approach that point in their project. But in the meantime, what I am still looking for is clarity on what changes we make by looking at our charge and what changes we make by looking at the charter and whether we're a committee or a commission. So I talked to Meth, and Meth was going to talk to the select board about best next steps. So Meth.
Yeah, and John Fuller, who's the chair of the charter committee, was at the select board meeting last night to talk about the charter in general. And I did introduce this question about the future of the rec committee. And we had talked about this before because I'm the liaison to the charter committee. And that's a question that they've put out to town council to answer, is exactly what is required to, if we want to, consider turning the rec committee into a commission, into an elected commission, which is something that was the way that was something in this town years ago. That's the way it was. So, and then at the same time, I was talking to the select board about your desire to talk about your future, because you've clearly outgrown your charge, which is, kudos to you. So there is I'm not sure of the date, but the budget process has started, and so there's going to be an evening devoted to different departments in town. And when the DPW comes in, which includes the recreation program, you're going to get invited to to come and talk. So the select board remembers whatever happened with the money last year, which nobody quite understands. But if you're present, I think we can maybe assure that it doesn't happen again. But I think that would also be the place to have a discussion about the future, and it might just be the need for a revised charge. Maybe there's an incremental movement here that we could talk about an enlarged and revised charge, and then if you continue to grow and develop, then maybe think about a commission down the road. And I don't have an answer for any of this. I just know that it's one thing to get volunteers to come and work for the rec committee. It's another thing to get people who are willing to run for office. It's not fun. Anyways, so in the future, you will be having a meeting with the select board to talk about where you, and believe me, I think this is where you should be telling the select board where you want to go. And you could even, if you wanted to, print out the charge and look at it and try to write a new one yourself to give everybody an idea of what you'd like to do. I think everybody on the board is supportive of what this committee is doing.
Anne?
Thank you. Thanks, Mep. I did listen to the select board last night. I couldn't help it. I still don't have a good handle. Do you have a good handle other than a commission is elected? How is a commission different than a committee in terms of their scope, autonomy, so forth?
Yeah, I don't. I have some assumptions that I couldn't verify, but Brewster has a commission, I believe, and if you know anybody in Brewster, they might be able to give you an idea of how that works. I would assume that you would have a lot of authority on your own to run the recreation program, and to try to craft a budget and grow the program. You would not be reporting to the select board if you were a it's like the Board of Health. The Board of Health is an independent, separate group. So it's I think that there's what might sound like advantages at first blush that there might not be when you get into it. And I also don't think there's a need to rush. I think the main thing is to at least get to the point now where your charge includes all these other things that you've been doing, like all these projects with the CPC and also the community center. All these things were, outside of what the original charge was.
Kyle has done a lot of research some time back, and came up with that recommendation, really, that if we focus on our charge, we may achieve what we want to achieve. And by the way, Kyle, congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks. Just to kind of just chime in, I'm going to fall back to that same comment from when it originally came up, is that there is going to be a difference, I think, between a commission and a committee in terms of, I think, authority or power to make changes. Whereas we're sitting in an advisory capacity with our charge being what it is. But again, if we change our charge to more fit what we're looking to do as a committee, that might put us in a different position as to accomplishing what kind of goals we are looking to accomplish. And so it's kind of like go hand in hand, I think. And I think Matt's right that we don't have to rush through that, thought process, because we do have a lot in terms of just trying to structure where we want to go and what our goals are. But, it's hard to, I can't, I'm like trying to, figure out what the difference between a commission and committee is. And the best I can really come up with is that I think a commission has a little bit more authority in terms of being able to set agendas or be in charge of things, as opposed to you're given a charge as a committee and you have to, operate under the auspice of that charge and within those parameters.
I was going to say, maybe we can look at the Conservation Commission charge, because if you go to their meeting, they make big decisions, and the other ones that don't go back to the select board. So I see the difference sometimes when you sit through a Conservation Commission meeting versus our sort of meeting. And maybe
John,
we
if I
can
could
look
just
at,
interrupt, the regulatory committees are different.
oh, okay. So those are even different than what we would be. And I have no clue. So do we have a commission? Meph, is there anyone on a commission that's not regulatory in Orleans?
The Board of Health is well, you're saying, ask me that question again.
So who, like, if we said we want to look at a different commission that's currently running in Orleans and talk to someone there.
The only thing that's, the only people that are elected outside of the select board are the Board of Health.
Yeah.
But they're regulatory. I mean, they regulate, they carry out yeah.
So there is none. This would be a first.
I think one of the things that happens if you say became a commission and were elected, you would be answering directly to the voters, which is probably a different thing than you're used to now.
Wasn't John Fuller on the Recreation Commission when it
I think he was.
Yeah, might be worth
A
talking
lot
about.
of the people on that charter committee go back to the days when it was a commission.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think the journey continues with with the commission committee discussion.
Actually, if anybody has time, and I know that probably you don't, if you were going to try to craft, let's say, some amendments or changes to the charge that you think would more reflect what you want to be doing, and get it ahead of time to John Kelly for everybody to see, that would probably help things a lot.
Do you have a sense of what time, next month, the month, March?
It's going to be, might be February 4th. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Does that sound right, Ann?
I think so.
Alan, do you know when your budget is going, the DPW budget is going in front of the select board?
I do not.
So anyways, I tell you what, let me get that. Let me find out and get that to you.
Okay, if that would be before our next meeting, though, does it make sense if there are a few of us who are interested in roughing out some changes to the charge? I mean, we'd still have to come back before the committee, though, before we presented it. Anne?
I think what may be reasonable, because this is awfully important for all of us, if it is indeed February 4th, for us to rough out changes, whomever does that, and then have one of our single issue meetings to vote after people saw what it is. And it's conceivable Carol and I can present to you.
I'm not suggesting that you have a finished
right
thing. It's just a document that would allow your ideas to be discussed. But I don't think anybody would be expecting that to be an unchangeable document.
Right.
Just maybe a loose, bunch of ideas.
Right. And but I think the last time we met with the select board, we had a meeting for about half an hour beforehand just to, all get on the same page and answer any questions. And so maybe that's what we're talking about here.
And if I can just say, I don't think the
Mhm.
anticipation was that it would be a joint meeting or anything. So I think
Okay.
you should designate, a couple of people, 2 or 3 people to be there and speak on the committee's behalf.
Okay. Okay, I think what I would suggest is that there are a few people who are interested in making some changes to the charge, in bringing them to the committee in a quick meeting, and then those same representatives going ahead to the select board meeting, that might be a good way to proceed. Understanding that we're not, this isn't a formal change to the charge, that there's still time for discussion after the fact, but just so we can be in a good, best foot forward on February 4th or
And technically, the select board writes the charge.
yeah.
So what you're doing is sort of
Good idea.
proposing changes. Yeah.
Okay. I am happy to work on the charge. Would anyone else like to work on the charge? Anne? Okay. Should I make a motion for Anne and Tracy to take a look at the charge and brainstorm new ideas, and then present it to the committee before we meet with the select board? Any discussion? Anne?
I was just seconding.
Okay. Any
I second
discussion?
your motion.
Okay, all in favor, Tracy? Oh, Meth,
No,
did
go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't realize you weren't finished.
okay. Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Evan?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
And Brandon?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes, so we'll do that, and then I'll be in touch about setting up a meeting. I'll lock
I
hands.
have a
What did I
question.
do wrong? Joan?
Matt, before you said that we should be prepared to also talk about the budget, is that on the 4th also?
I think what I was is the specific issue that happened last year when the money got left out of the budget. That was very confusing for the select board. We thought we had, had put it in, and then it turned out that it had come out, and no one really understood why. So I think we want to make sure that doesn't happen again.
So do we need to
In
write
general, the
something up
budget,
on that?
If you have thoughts about the budget, that would be the time to do it too. But you probably ought to talk to Alan.
Right, that's right, yeah. That's what I was gonna ask. Alan, do you put together your budget, or is this Tom?
I put it together. I submit it to Tom. Tom reviews it with all the departments that he oversees. He presents it to John and Kathy Doan. And they make adjustments and this and that. And then John Kelly, actually, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, you know this. I mean, it's technically John's, once it gets to discussion with the Board of Selectmen, all of the fine tuning between, say, myself, Recreation, and Tom and John and Kathy are done. Any change this, do this, make an adjustment here, so that when it goes to the Board of Selectmen, it's actually John Kelly's budget. He presents the budget. I mean, I don't present a budget to the Select Board.
Right. But what you should do, John, what your committee should do from Alan is find out what's in that, what things are being funded in that budget. And if you think things are being left out or things should be added, that would be the forum to do that.
Can I just, so last year we had a meeting where Tom brought the budget and showed us each of the items that was gonna be in it. I believe it was probably this meeting. It was probably in January. And we were able to go through it and compare. He gave us comparisons so we could see the the year previous to the one that he was proposing to you. That budget that he showed us was different from what got shown to the select board. And that's where the problem arose, because we were never told that there was going to be a difference in what was shown to us as a advisory committee and what was shown to you all. But we went to Tom and he was the person who gave us that information. So I guess I'm wondering, Alan, have you already given Tom your proposed budget?
Yeah, that was done. Yeah, that's done.
So is it possible for us to get a copy of that?
You're putting me on
I-
the spot. I think you should be able to get it, but
Right.
I'm not exactly sure what the proper channels are to do that. Certainly not a secret.
Could I follow up with Tom? Is that the best next step?
I would avoid, if you could, talking to Tom Daly this week.
Right.
His father passed away Sunday.
Yep.
He is taking bereavement time.
Okay.
Alan, if I ask John Kelly and to give you the okay, could you get a copy out to Tracy?
Sure.
Okay.
I'll do that.
Thank you.
I have a question on the budget, Meth. Is the budget strictly for Alan, or is there any extra money for this team as an advisory team?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think there was any money for the committee outside of the rec program. And that's, I think, one of the things that you want to find out about if you're going to be, playing an expanded role. This is how, what are the resources available to you?
Right. And I also think of Alan's newsletter that, he's a one-man shop there that he's, volunteers are writing it and stuff. I mean, there might be some more stuff in there that we would like to enhance.
Right. But that's something to be just thinking about.
Right.
Okay. All right. Moving on then.
Tracy?
Yep.
I'm going to complicate our lives here a little bit while we're talking about the charter. This is a time, and I understand the Charter Review Committee works over years, so it doesn't have to be tonight, but I'm going to remove the rec department from DPW and have it in some other setting, not DPW, is a charter motion that someday, as we're advising, we can take up, but not now. I'm just saying.
That's something that, again, continues to come up. I think we have a delivery, so he's making sure we're okay. Okay, anything else on this topic? All right.
Tracy, I'm gonna say goodnight, but
Thank you again, Meth.
well, thank you all for your work, but I just wanted to, I see you're going to get into the Orleans Citizens Forum thing, and I know, to the extent that you can get the word out to people to attend would be great. Get the more people there, the better.
Yep. Yes, thank you.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
Good night, Matt. Thank you.
Okay.
Tracy, I'm gonna
Yes.
exit as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, CPC update from Joan. So we have our meeting dates, the 18th, right? And then the 25th?
The 18th is Carol and her trails, and Beth is her liaison. And then the rest is the 25th, and I'm the liaison, which makes it easy. What I don't know is if I have to hand off presenting bicycles to someone else on, bike racks to someone else on the team. We had the first meeting last week. It was easy. It was Zoom. They basically gave a little summary. It was less than 10 minutes. Nothing's controversial from what I'm sitting on the board. Everyone wants these things to go through. You know, there might be a little bit of budget cut here or there on some other. I think there'll be some questions about the cost of the engineering study, so it's good that Tom's coming. Someone had asked me if he bids it out to 3, and Walter North, who is great and knows this, just said, well, Tom will be there and Tom will answer those questions. So I think it'll be easy. And then Morgan, you'll coordinate with Steve and the librarian and whoever's going to talk about that.
Yes, I will. I talked to Ann and I've emailed with Steve a little bit, but we were thinking maybe a slide or two. Do you think that's appropriate?
Yeah, you could do a slide or a graphic. Last time, no one even gave us anything. They just talked off the top of their head. The Veterans Memorial people actually did a little schematic, which I thought brought it to life. And I don't know whether or not there's a little schematic, like a drawing you want to talk to, that helped, but whatever you want to do. I think you have to have everything in, though. If the meeting is Thursday, you should have it to me to submit to Myra by the Friday prior.
Okay.
Because you can't go over anything unless it's submitted prior. So we can't, and I could just send it out and Myra will send it to everyone. And that's it. It should go fast.
Carol?
Joan, do you know if the Conservation Commission trail signage at the head of the, at the entrance to the conservation area one will have been before hours or after hours?
On the 18th. That's why you're on the 18th, Carol.
Okay.
So Mesh is, yeah, so you're with the Conservation Commission, that project.
Perfect. Thank you.
So they're trying to line them all up. And then just so everyone knows, we get the money to spend, they could start writing checks in July. So whoever's working on the projects that have a go forward date, July would be the time. And then Ann, I know you said you have Nate and Dick coming also?
Yes.
So-
How much time should we mostly be very brief and field questions? Is that the idea?
Yeah, 15 minutes or less.
15 minutes is a lot of time.
Yeah, don't go 15 minutes. They
Yeah,
would like it less
okay.
than 15 minutes. 10 minutes should be good. I mean, the one
Yeah.
that's going to take a lot of time for the CPC is the Primrose, the Cape Cod housing. That's going to take, 45 minutes, but nothing's that's really complicated. None of these are that complicated.
Right.
I think I think there's support for everything and there's funding for everything. So I don't see anything coming up as an issue.
That's great.
The one thing I want to put out there, so there's a couple of commissions, the Conservation Commission and Historic. They put in requests for CPC to sort of have a revolving fund. So every year they get money. The Housing Trust gets $500,000. Historic is getting like 50 grand. So we should put in for the next round of CPC funding, money that we have at our disposal to do things like engineering studies and without having to wait a full year as part of design. So I want to just put that out there that we should start building that in now for the upcoming years. Because then we could have probably done the community center survey, thing for 75 grand without having to go back to get it looked at. Although you can't do a building, but there was maybe could have been a way for outdoor recreation we could have looked at or something. So that's how they get funded.
How do we do that, Joan?
So
Do we
next
have to
year for the
submit-
CPC funding, we could just
Okay, we
write it up and put in that's what we want to do.
Okay.
I have another question though, Tracy. So when we just had that conversation about the pickleball courts, Alan left and we didn't take a vote on it. I mean, wouldn't that have been something we could have said, hey, we want those up? But that's when I get confused about as an advisory council or a commission. Because we should have, I would have hoped we all would have said, okay, put them up. There's no cost, there's no issue. And I sort of feel like we didn't get okay, that's going to get done. I don't know.
You're right.
Ann? Yeah,
That-
no,
Yeah, that was an opportunity. I let that go too. Can we do it after the fact now?
now that he's not here. Can't we do it after the fact and say that the
Sure.
committee voted
It's not
to
our
come on
choice that
heads
he's
up,
not
and
here.
I'll be in, I'll reach out to Alan tomorrow just to get it in writing for him that we'd like the nets to go up. Thank you, Joan, for bringing that up. Do I have a motion? A net motion? Joan? So the motion is that that RAC would like pickleball nets up for the winter as soon as possible, and that they stay up. Do I have any discussion? Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan?
Aye.
Brandon? Kyle?
Emily and I.
Evan?
Maybe, let's see.
Oh, no, oh, don't, yeah. Oh, gosh.
Oh.
Next time, we'd like you to turn her around for at least a minute.
No, yes, I'm sorry. She just started screaming. We were tag teaming 2 other kids, so.
Evan?
Aye.
Anne?
Aye.
And Sharon?
Aye.
Okay, great. And I will inform Alan of that vote.
Thank you.
The other thing while I'm on it, he didn't say, yes, I will send those emails to the police department. I really felt like he should have said then right there, yes, I'll get that to you so you can come to the next skating event and the next. I was getting.
No, I mean, I think I agree. I don't have a date for getting the budget from him. That's not necessarily happening tomorrow morning when he gets into the office either. So I think that maybe you take a vote on everything every time you.
I know, we don't have to. I know, I'm just trying to figure out if you could just email him and say, hey, and can you make sure.
Here's a bulleted list of what we'd like. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? All right. And we do have another committee meeting, I don't think it's before Carol goes, but before the rest of us go, before CPC. So if anything, if any questions come up. Okay, 139 Main Street update from Ann and Carol.
Carol, are you?
Yeah, I sent out a write-up of, really it's a summary of both meetings that we've had with them by phone, but it was written today, so it captures where we stand right now. I think it's self-explanatory. If you'd like me to go through the high points, I can. Otherwise, you can read it. Basically, we are in touch with the CHO Board of Directors through their chairman, Jay Straddle, and another member, Bill Weibel. Is it Weibel or Weibel? And I think it's Weibel. Anyway, and they are open to partnering. They have very clear long-term goals, some of which they've funded, some of which they haven't. Very open to partnering, and they're excited about the few things we've thrown out as an idea. They haven't shot any of them down as long as they don't conflict with their goals, which I summarized there for you. And we need the brain power here to come up with more ideas. I think that's where we stand.
Carol, can I just mention?
Sure, please.
Because your write-up came today, it's not officially part of the public committee. So if there are people Zooming or with us or watching our program later, they won't know what that is. So we could post it, or you could say more now, whatever makes sense.
Whatever's the right thing to do. in terms of process? You tell me.
Do you want to fill us in? Oh, Anne, what do you think?
Well, I was going to say, how much does the committee get? What we're up to? For instance, Kyle has been distracted for around the new year. Do you want a little more summary of what we're doing about 139?
Well, I certainly think that, anybody watching, I mean, and I got some from what I read from Carol's, but I think just for the, sake of recapping, what Carol sent out is certainly helpful.
Good.
Okay. I'll start, and Anne, you should jump in if you want to add something.
Okay.
So the history is a couple, probably 3 or 4 months ago, we were visited during one of our full committee meetings like this by George Meservey, who named the 139 Main Street site, which is next to the Cho property. It includes the gravel pad that was where the temporary police station was during the construction of the new one. It extends down the hill and actually into the woods, and then stops where the VFW property is a separate property. And it includes on it a small white building where the DPW was temporarily during that same time period. They called the town annex, and currently Cho rents that for storage space. And what we decided after hearing from Meservey that no one had really any plans for that town-owned property is several of us went individually and walked it and thought, how can we take some of the highly rated requests in the survey and meet some of those needs if they fit with the property. One of the obvious ones was to do something jointly with the historical people who will be next door forever because they either own or lease, I'm not clear on that, the land that's next door. And so we have met with 2 people to plant the seeds. They've gone to their board and come back and said, in principle, we like the idea of partnering. We like the idea that you can go for CPC money from a rec point of view, and we can go for CPC money from a historical point of view. And they'd be complementary. We wouldn't do anything on their site, but we might do something complementary that gives a nod to the maritime history theme they're planning for that site forever. We might give additional ways to attract people, such as picnic tables, benches, bike paths, maybe an adult fitness path, attract people to their property because they're planning a big plaza, if you will, between the now rotated chapel and the old school building, which is their main building, where they will have outdoor gatherings, including revenue raising gatherings like weddings and so on. And so anything we can do next door, if you will, in that adjacent property that is consistent with their plan that would reinforce it, they could spill into it, and it would be well received by them.
And one of the things that got them fired up about the property is they own the Coast Guard 36-500, the finest hours rescue boat, and are going to build some kind of shelter so that it can be viewed and is one of the anchors or magnets to the property. And we're enthused to hear our thoughts about pocket parks or exercise circuits, and how could we incorporate maybe life-saving history or maritime history into all of that. And they love the synergy of our interest, which is also across the street from the ballpark. So it's very preliminary. They wanted to stress that, although they talked with their board. But one thing we decided today because George really dropped a few hints, and we've heard on the select board that they're taking inventory of town property and thinking about what they might do with it, that they are going to craft a letter that Carol and I will look at, which will basically be stating this, that we're both interested in this property and are working together to develop plans. And each board will be presented with a letter so that we can vote on it. And that would be powerful to give to the powers that be in town, which in a sense stakes our claim of interest.
I have a question. I'm not being like a naysayer, but who's to say that Cho would get that property? They get a lot of money from the CPC. They've got a lot for the last 2 years. They don't have another bucket of money, from what I know, for historic. So if it's all predicated on getting CPC funds, I'm just wondering, how else could they source it? If they don't get CPC funds and it costs a lot, then does our rec program not happen there? Or should we also look at an alternative that's just a rec opportunity if indeed they can't get the funds to put the life-saving boat there?
I think they're committed to fundraising if they need to.
That's what they said.
Very committed to one way or another. That's a major goal.
Okay.
That started it, right?
Well, that's good because they must, yeah.
Yeah.
They can't physically leave the boat in the water. I think it's getting damaged.
Okay, that's good to know.
Any other questions or
Any other questions?
brilliant ideas? Yeah.
It's exciting to, I think it's a neat collaboration to, a theme is always good. A theme always kind of lends itself to creative thinking and an approach to recreation that we haven't tried before. So I think there's lots of potential and a good partnership.
They also said that they were open, that one of their goals for the next year was to partner with lots of organizations. And we just happened to be the first to approach them. And they hinted at maybe the Cultural Council because it's the historical old center of town. And so there might be some other means of getting people to there, attracting more people from that point of view.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the RAC submission for the town report. So I sent it to you. I'll read through, and then if there are any suggestions or changes, we can discuss them. Evan did flag that I said 2020 at the end instead of 2021, which, I mean, I'm not gonna, I won't make that adjustment until at least February, but I did make that correction already. The Recreation Advisory Committee advises the Recreation Director, Town Administrator, and Select Board on ways to grow and improve recreation opportunities in Orleans. We have 7 members. The Recreation Advisory Committee was gratified to see the hydration stations we supported in 2019 approved in 2020, and to move the pickleball court application from pending to submitted. In early 2020, the Recreation Advisory Committee surveyed Orleans citizens. The goals of the survey were twofold: to assess satisfaction with the current recreation opportunities in town, including the recent introduction of fees for programming, and to elicit ideas for future recreation endeavors. Over 300 people responded to the survey. Just over half of respondents identified as senior citizens. 75% of respondents rated their satisfaction with the current Orleans recreation programming as either average or above average, 87% of respondents supported fees for some or all programming. 95% of respondents thought that fees for recreation programs should go exclusively to support Orleans Recreation Department expenses. As for future recreation endeavors, most respondents ranked a community center as the most important future development goal for Orleans Recreation. An indoor pool, more bike paths, a lighted basketball court, and pickleball courts were also very popular ideas. For amenities, respondents supported water stations at recreation sites, signage and maps along trails, as well as benches and picnic tables at parks and along trails. 82.4% of respondents supported the extension of the summer youth recreation program from half day to full day. The Recreation Advisory Committee had hoped to host a forum to explain and explore survey results, but it was canceled due to the pandemic. Instead, we held a Zoom forum in September. We also met with the select board to present our survey results and our plans to put those results into action. In response to the survey results, the Recreation Committee decided to focus first on projects that were eligible for Community Preservation Act funding. In November, we submitted a package of applications titled Orleans Outside to the Community Preservation Committee. Those applications were for bike racks, kayak racks and waterways education, enhanced trail signage, storybook trail, picnic areas, lighted basketball court, engineering plans, and pickleball court. At town meeting in October, the Recreation Advisory Committee supported a warrant article to fund a feasibility study for an Orleans Community Center. Though the article failed to reach the 2/3 of votes necessary to pass, we were encouraged that the majority of voters were in favor of funding the study. The Orleans Citizens Forum will host a discussion about an Orleans Community Center in January 2021. The Recreation Advisory Committee will have 2 representatives at the forum. We look forward to this and other ways to continue the conversation about an Orleans Community Center. We can't report on 2020 without acknowledging the major impact the pandemic has made. For us specifically, it's led us to appreciate community and the importance of recreation for physical and mental health for all of us. Though our first year as a committee was focused on programming in the department, 2020 made us take a more holistic view of recreation in Orleans. This greater focus was supported by 2 sources of insight. First, our survey showed us that citizens desire more recreation opportunities throughout Orleans on water and land, e.g. outside. Secondly, the pandemic has made us all appreciate how important our outdoor resources are. We look forward to continuing to improve access to all sorts of recreation in Orleans in 2021. So additions or subtractions or edits. Joan?
I only heard 2 things. You said we have 7 members, but we have 7 full-time and 2 associates, right?
Okay. Yes.
And then participating at the forum, I think you have 2 people presenting, but I had hoped that most of us would also be at the forum.
Okay, so I'll change the wording.
What is
Thank
it?
you. That's a good point.
Great, Tracy, it's fabulous.
Tracy, that's great. And it's conceivable they're going to want to cut it a little bit. So I'd like us to just approve it and give you the freedom to cut it if they tell you. you
Okay.
need to eliminate words.
Okay.
So a motion to that effect.
Carol, did you have a question?
Yeah, just, I'm not sure what it ended up being called, outdoors or outside, but you might just check on the CPC website which one we used. I just don't
I'll
remember.
have to go back and look because I, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do I have a second to approve the
Like
submission?
to approve.
Evan? Okay, and then all in favor, Tracy Murphy, aye. Joan?
Aye.
Brandon? Kyle?
Aye.
Evan?
Aye.
Ann?
Aye.
And Sharon?
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Then the next item is the Orleans Citizens Forum that Meth mentioned a few minutes ago. We talked about this at the last meeting. Kyle and I will be panelists. Kevin Galligan will be the first to speak, and then Carolyn Carey from the Harwich Community Center. I think that's it. I think there are 4. And then it will open up to questions. Maxine Minkoff will moderate. And Joanna Keeley from the Old Firehouse and Cultural Council and Judy Wilson from the COA will also be in attendance to answer any questions that come up, that they can speak to. So we're looking for good attendance. I can send out a link. The Orleans Citizens Forum has a website that has a hyper, link that you can click right through on their calendar of events that would be worth passing along to people who might be interested. And hopefully we get some good feedback about when people say they want a community center, what does that mean to different people? And where do we go from here? But I think this is an important next step in continuing the conversation, and it's bringing in partners that we, hadn't talked to before. And I continue, I think we've met a few times to plan. In 2 meetings ago, when Carol and Carrie talked about the Harwich Community Center, I mean, you just, your brain just starts popping with different ideas that we could do in our own. It's hard not to be excited about it. So, so that's that. And Kyle, did you want to add anything?
I think if you have questions that can help shape the conversation, it might be worth thinking about some things to kind of either throw out there, or there might be a way to submit prior, because we know that we're, what we're facing in terms of budget and capital projects and all of that. But if we can, in a way, kind of ask the questions that we've all asked in this particular forum, so that we can, generate that discussion as to why our committee thinks it's a valuable thing to look at, but also answer some of those other questions that are out there that people have asked in kind of either opposition or hesitance towards moving down the line.
I thought it was great that the Governor Prince survey, community center was right below housing. I mean, it was so empowering considering where we came from the town meeting. And it seemed like even the members of the community, George and everyone, were like, well, how can we make that work? Can we hold aside property to do it? So I think there's good momentum there. And, but people have said, well, what's that mean? What does a community center mean? And I don't know who's going to decide that. That's sort of the.
Well, I mean, what I can say, Joan, is listening to Carolyn Carey from Harwich, who's the community center director there. I mean, she really will, I think, lay out kind of this vision of a all-encompassing kind of community center that, isn't just a rec center, isn't just a community room center, which I thought was incredibly helpful to hear from. And I know that Joanna Keeley with the cultural district and, kind of operating the Old Firehouse, they have over 100 organizations that are operating out of there that are all over the place with different things. They have the radio program, they have, dog training, they have an after school program, they have arts programs. So it's just kind of, answering that kind of question and then saying, look, we came out with this, for a feasibility study. It didn't go anywhere, but I think that's because the messaging wasn't there as to what we were hoping to answer. And these are the kind of things that we're hoping to answer, kind of say, this is what we envision. And it's an all-encompassing, really kind of a awesome project that, that they did over in Harwich and other places too. So.
Anne?
2 things. One is, would you bring in the fact that our neighbor Eastham, it has some incipient interest in shared amenities, so that, for instance, if we put in an Olympic pool, that there's some interest perhaps in working with our neighboring town if those things become identified. So making the conversation open to include possibilities.
Yeah, I think, interesting to sort of figure out how you strike that balance between presenting a vision that's clear enough that people can decide they want to sign on to it and support it, and still being presenting a vision that has a lot of flexibility, you know, for what people are looking for. Kyle, I don't think I reference Eastham in my notes. Does it come up in yours, which were a little more?
Yeah, no, I was just looking at that. It doesn't, but I can certainly kind of add it into the whole rec advisory segment that I do, start off with my section, just in terms of talking about what we've done as a committee and why we've come to the point of talking about this particular project.
On that note, and a friend of mine is a new economic development planner in Eastham, and she'll attend on Monday to hear the discussion and sort of start the conversation with us about shared amenities, and to sort of keep up on what we're thinking as they continue to think on their end about what they want to do. So I think that'll that's going to be a nice relationship for us. Carol?
Yeah, two things. One question, would you talk about possibly including the COA in the new community center for intergenerational activities and all that?
So Kevin Galligan will be the first one to speak, and he has brought that up a few times, both in terms of how much longer the current community center or the current Council on Aging building makes sense and is viable, but also in terms of proposing this is a multi-phase project, that maybe there's something in the not too distant future that's a little more recreation based, and maybe kids and families and adults. But then an additional phase down the road that would bring in the senior center, that would bring in a Council on Aging, I don't know, another part of the building or another wing, but that would be part of the planning, that we would look at this as phase 1, phase 2, and maybe, phase 2 or 3 would involve the Council on Aging. I do think Judy Wilson, when she was at the meeting the other night, brought up a few times, that there will be concerns from that part of the population about how we're paying for this. And also that it's just important that they be at the table, in discussions. So that's something we have to keep in mind. Yeah.
So my second point is an item that a retired friend of mine, a guy who has no children, never did have children. In fact, he's the one I earlier pointed out had a very outdated view of what a center might look like. And he said he would be interested in like a workshop with woodworking tools and saws, and so not artist space per se, but everybody go and you can share common tools like that. And that was done in the suburb I came from, outside of Boston, and it was done really well. So just an idea of one thing that might attract some of the older crowd who has time for that.
And of course, Harwich now has their cultural, I think it's called the Cultural Center too. So, maybe we're headed there at some point too, if we, a community center that we don't already even have yet, and I'm already making plans to outgrow it. But that would be the hope, right? Is that you get a community center and it starts generating ideas. And I was also thinking, when Judy Wilson spoke about possible resistance the other night, that's part of the reason why we need a community center, is so different parts of the community are seeing each other on a more regular basis. And the Harwich Community Center has computer classes that teenagers teach for senior citizens, and some girl power classes that bring together different generations. So it's, again, there's, all the right reasons to do this. And then we just have to get that conversation started. Morgan, did you have something?
I was just going to piggyback on Carol's idea about those workshops. So, I always think of, I think we all love Provincetown and the Fine Arts Work Center up there, and thinking of a community center in a different way where you could be doing woodworking or some sort of class in the arts. And maybe you have a 15 or 14-year-old in a class with a 60-year-old and offering opportunities like that. I also want to just add and just remind everybody how maxed out for space we are at all of our after school programs, at the elementary school as well as the middle school programming. We just don't have the space for the kids. That there's wait lists, at least at the elementary level, typically, not during COVID, obviously, but we've always had a wait list at the after school program for our elementary school. And I think that Kyle could probably speak to NASA Together We Can, but I think that it's probably not as successful as it could be because their space is not great. They're housed in a back room of that old firehouse with some couches and like a makeshift, ping pong table maybe? I don't even know. It's not great. It's not great. My kids went, but it's not great. And that, that there's a real need for space and quality programming in the afternoons for working families of Orleans.
That's part of what I talk about in my prepared comments, is that the elementary school, the parent teacher committee ran an enrichment program for years, and it grew from one session to fall and winter, and however many kids, I think by the last time there were 150 kids enrolled in the seasonal class. But the logistics of finding classroom space and you're still dealing with a school that's still busy. Teachers are still in their rooms from 2 to 3, and 3 different people want to teach something where they need the gym, and it just outgrew our ability to handle it on a volunteer level. But it wasn't that the program wasn't successful. And similarly, with open gym, which we still haven't been able to do, it's not that we wouldn't fill open gym, without even trying. It's just that we don't have the space. So I think that I think that's a really important point to push. Other thoughts or ideas, Anne?
So I like that Kevin is going to lay out the concept of a staged progression, and that the seniors hopefully are aware that the senior center is threatened by sea level rise. So a staged progression would include the needs of the seniors. The intergenerational value of community is well recognized and just something longed for, because this town is starting to feel like it doesn't have a community. It doesn't have a center. Everybody would agree that a library is part of a town. We've grown up to believe that libraries are essential to towns, and the library's talking about including community space. We all would agree concretely that recreation needs a home, but recreation is more than just a gym. It is also a center. And the ability to have the town think ahead, identify their needs, plan, it's very feasible to plan in the budget, what comes first, what comes second. And as George wisely said, if you are thinking about what it is you need and when and in the future, then you're ready to take advantage of space when it comes up. I think the people who are very, very aware of taxes and budgets and are in the now and scared will respond to thinking ahead and not doing things because, oh, what do you know, this year we can afford something, what are we going to do? But plan in concert with the library and the schools and the senior center. Anyway,
Good. So any other suggestions, or if anything else comes to you, please, give a shout so that we can work it into our comments.
Tracy, can you have Alan send out his email? He has 365 families on it to tell them about the meeting. Yeah.
Yes, I have an email for Alan for tomorrow, so that'll be in there. Okay, future agenda items. Okay, I'm sure. Yes, Joan?
Metrics.
Yep, Alan had told me the February meeting he would have some information for us. Anything else? Anne?
At what stage do we want to get specific about the 5-year plan? I feel like we're a little burned out from being so busy that we haven't bid into that, and maybe we don't want to till the spring.
I think, learning as I go, as I am, it seemed to me at the last meeting that we weren't quite there yet with the 5-year plan, that there were concerns about how functional it would be and how lasting it would be. And so my sense, and please jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, was that doing some sort of metrics like Joan had talked about, and looking at our charge would not only give us some short-term clarity, but also put us in a better position to then sit down and dig into a 5-year plan. I don't know that we can do them at the same time. I'm wondering if we want to get the charge squared away and start to look at metrics, and then start to talk about the 5-year plan. Are there thoughts on that? The charge seems to me, I think we've really outgrown that original charge. A lot of the projects that we're talking about now go beyond programming. And so even though programming is going to continue to be an important part of it, I think maybe if we get the charge settled, then that puts us in a position to start to look at the next few years. And
I agree. There's many ways we can come at it from way above,
Okay.
or we can use the exercise of working on our charge to kind of clarify who we want to be.
Yes.
When we grow up.
Okay. Joan?
I think it would be good if we were able to have Tom be at one of our meetings. It might not be the next one. But I think we have to really come up with a firm understanding of what our relationship is with the rec department. And if we're really advisory, how much is being taken into account? Is it equal footing? Are we just giving suggestions? And I think Tom has to be there for that conversation. And that's going to be part of our charge. So it would be good to get his input.
Anne?
What one problem is, we're actually advising the select board.
Oh.
But the problem is the select board has no say over town employees. So we're in this vacuum, really. The select board says, oh yeah, that sounds good. Go ahead. So, but we can get his view of what our role is.
I feel like that's something someone should have flagged that for us spring 2019. So maybe that's something that we can talk about on February 4th.
We can change our charge and see
Yeah.
how it goes.
Yeah, that would be an important next step, because I agree with Joan. I think, even in terms of looking at the mission statement, our mission statement isn't necessarily Alan's mission statement. So just, that relationship, and figuring out, I don't know that when the committee was established, that the thinking was that we would, I don't know that maybe the thinking was we would be more involved in programming, maybe not, but it does seem like most of our meetings now are talking about things other than programming. Good things, important things for recreation in the town. But I just don't, again, I think squaring away that charge, making sure it fits what we're actually doing is an important next step. Sharon?
I'm just feeling like we've gotten away from the programming discussions because of the pandemic, that there hasn't been a lot to discuss, and it's been so limited in what there's been to offer that it just hasn't been forefront. Had there been no pandemic, I think we would have probably had a lot more to say about what the programming looked like. It's just been so. The other thing that I'm wondering is if you do get this proposed budget from Alan, I wouldn't imagine there's going to be changes over last year because there hasn't been any budget expenditures this year to go off of to say that we need to increase. And what we need to look back at is the year previous. And I know that when I looked at it last year, that it was reductions across the board based on what was actually spent. So I'm just wondering, do we need time between when you receive this in February 4th to actually really look at the numbers and come back with suggestions? Because last year we didn't get that information until it was too late to do anything. So I just don't want us to get the information and not have an opportunity to talk to each other. Oh, about what those numbers mean comparatively to what we actually spent in 2019, because that's the only year that we have to compare to. Anybody?
So if hopefully the budget is out to people soon, we could do that at our relatively quick meeting before the select board. Yes?
So on February 4th?
Yeah, if that is when we end up doing that.
Okay.
So circling back for a second to what we were just talking about, who it is or to whom we're actually advising. I'm definitely interested in trying to understand that a little bit better, because Joan, I like what you said earlier in the meeting about us taking votes as an advisory committee like we did on the nets, but we definitely should have a firm understanding of who we're providing the results of those votes to and who cares. I mean, early on, Alan had made it clear in one meeting that we were an advisory committee and that we could advise anything and everything we wanted to, and some things might happen and some things might not happen. But in the interest of being results oriented, it certainly would be nice to be able to kind of keep tabs on the votes we take and understand who we're presenting the results of our votes to, and then being able to see what happens and what doesn't happen based on the things that we advise ought to happen. So I don't know who would be the best person to answer those questions, but those are some of the questions I have right now.
Anne?
I can tell you from watching a lot of the select board and some other meetings that there's a fair amount of fuzziness of who we are advising, and therefore changing our charge will empower us. For instance, if we chose in our charge to play a role in, for instance, a review, the annual employee review, if we had input, that would be a mechanism of having a little more say. If we put in our charge that we, in concert with the director, would develop goals for a year that would be reviewed by us at the end of the year, that would give us a bigger role. And what I'm saying, and I could be wrong because it's just a personal opinion, but if we're searching for how much, who we're advising, we're going to get as much clarity as we have now.
Joan?
So, and Meth's not here, but maybe we can have Meth at the next meeting come back to us and give us his perspective on it. Because I'm so confused right now about who we're advising at the select board, but they can't really have a say in what's happening at rec. That sort of opens up a different box of worms.
I don't mean to prolong the conversation because it's definitely off agenda, and I think it's a great conversation. I do think that within our current charge, there's enough vagueness to do a lot of the things that we're talking about, and basically we have to be the squeaky wheel. Does it? I don't necessarily. I mean, not to say that it doesn't matter, but if we just report what we're asking to do to anybody, making more vocal, I don't think we're ever going to get buy-in from Alan on what our position is and what our recommendations are. So the way I kind of look at it is, okay, thanks for coming for your director's report, and then move on as if we want, what do we want to do with rec? And then if we move it up the chain to the Board of Select and kind of put the ball in their court, that might be one way. There might be a different way to do it and have more say. But I think, things like exploring possibilities for new or enhanced recreational programs or facilities on town property, that's part of our charge. We can do a lot with just that one sentence. We can, look at study local and national trends in recreation through surveys and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot that we can do within our current charge. It's just, we need to find a balance in how we do that and see results through, sorry, but see results in terms of just making our voice, I think, louder. And I understand, I mean, I definitely feel that there is some frustration. So I think it's a good conversation for us to have. And that's, I think, kind of part of the idea of talking about what is our goal? What are we trying to do? How are we going to do that? I think you have to look back, though, and we've accomplished a lot so far in, making some headway. And we're, people look at us as actually a committee that has the ability to make some changes. And now we got to say, okay, let's move forward with that. What do we want to see done? How do we want to get it changed? Because I do think there's a lot of reception for a lot of these ideas. We just got to be more vocal about it and more, I think, succinct and put together and putting those forward.
Okay. I'm going to wrap the discussion there just so we can, we could go on forever with anxieties about our role in the town and who's listening. But we'll wrap that, and then I think getting Meth's feedback on that at the next meeting would be helpful. Our next meeting is the 18th. So that will be a busy day for Carol and Joan. Is I think 4:30 for the CPC, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so hopefully that timing still works out, or, you know, we can be in touch as the date nears. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, and a second?
Second.
All right, great. Thank you. All in favor? Yeah. All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Have a good night. Thanks again.